Love it.
And do that. So I appreciate everybody being on. Again, I apologize. Kevin and I kind of made an executive decision, as executive as we can make. Last week, we just didn't have many people on because of conflicts and stuff like that. So I wanted to reschedule it for this week. But again, we've got a few people on. I appreciate that. If you have the ability to uncamera yourself and unmute yourself, it'll help me a little bit so we can kind of interact. What I wanted to talk about, so our first meetings that we had, we talked about really kind of a high level for everybody. We were talking about kind of across the board. And then our last meeting, we talked about really kind of service and parts. And hopefully, if your parts or service managers wasn't involved with that, I think it'd be a great idea for them to go back through it. I gave kind of a checklist of 5 things in service and parts they can kind of rate themselves through. Micah, thanks for joining us. Anyway, so this one, though, I really wanted to target on sales. One of the things that I'm working on real hard with the dealerships and our dealer success groups, and actually my daughter and I, Sarah, Sarah does a lot of the speaking anymore, we're working on a new project called the Dealership Sales Accelerator. And because we really feel like 2026 is going to have some great opportunities for us if we're willing to take advantage of them. And I know salespeople over the last couple of years got back out of the COVID habit of saying, okay, all we had to do was kind of hang out and put our hand out and money came in. And congratulations to salespeople. I think salespeople have really kind of stepped up, back up to the plate, doing the hard work of selling that we had to do. So anyway, so I'm excited to do it. Kevin, I really appreciate you setting this up for us and doing that. We were talking about Toro, so I'll just be honest with you. This meeting will have nothing to do with Toro. It's all gonna be LS. But anyway, there's a lot of us on here that have some history, so it's always fun to kind of catch up with everybody there. So the first question I always ask salespeople when I work with salespeople, and again, I started my company as a sales training company back in about 40 years ago. But the first question I always ask salespeople is, why do people buy things? I tell salespeople, I think one of the most important things you have to understand as a salesperson is understanding the basic truth. Why do people buy? And I tell salespeople, people are not logical, they're emotional. And one of the big mistakes I see salespeople make is salespeople, they go to product training and the engineers have explained everything ad nauseum to them about all of the things the product will do. But if you've ever worked with an engineer, not a lot of emotion is attached to what they do. And the reality of sales is an emotional process, not a logical process. And I think the thing that I see many times salespeople miss is understanding that people are not logical, they are emotional. They buy based upon emotion. And so when I'm working with salespeople, I say, so if we understand that, if people are not logical but emotional, then why would they buy you? Because as I work with salespeople, I always say, you have to understand that the first thing that's sold in a sale is the salesperson. If they don't, Micah, if they don't like you, if they don't trust you, right? If they don't have any good experience with you, then they're not going to do business with you. I don't care if you got a great product. I don't care if your product will do anything. Mike, if they just don't like you, they're not going to do business with you. So my number one objective as a salesperson is to get them to like me. Right. And people like to be around people that are excited and motivated. So I always tell salespeople, so if that's the case and you're a salesperson, then what you have to do is make sure that you are keeping yourself excited and motivated about the product. And I think sometimes it's hard for salespeople to do it because I know sometimes salespeople are around other people in the dealership that bitch, whine, moan, and complain about everything. And I tell salespeople, so if you're around people that are bitching, whining, and moaning, complaining, they're like a cancer in your brain as a salesperson, and you got to stay away from those people. So the first thing you have to do, again, is understand that people are not logical, they're emotional. I always tell people you can't out-logic emotion. And what we have to do is understand that as a product, when you go to sell a tractor, LS tractors, they're not buying LS tractors. They've already made a decision to buy probably a tractor and most likely an LS tractor. They're just trying to figure out, who do I buy it from at this point? And again, I know a lot of dealers out there say, well, we've got another dealer down there that's screwing with their pricing all the time, and they go to them. And I said, well, they go to them because they're not excited about going to you. I tell people again, most people, 60% of the population will spend more money to buy something if you can show them that you're worth more money. If you're just doing an apples to apples comparison and you're not showing them what you bring to the table is worth more than somebody else, then of course they're going to use price as a determining factor of what they're going to buy or not going to buy. So while I have a lot of dealers that tell me that somebody else is always out there cutting the price, undercutting this or undercutting that, I go, that's true. 15% of the population are price sensitive. They're going to buy the cheapest priced out there, but 85% of the people aren't. And so what we have to understand as a salespeople, we got to say, okay, what are we doing that brings value to this? What do we do that brings value to this? And I always tell salespeople that there's only one thing that your dealership has that no other dealership has access to, and it's the number one thing that people buy anyway, which is you. And I think the biggest mistake that I find salespeople make is they do not understand how to sell themselves. They understand maybe how to talk about a tractor. They may understand how to talk about a mower, but they really don't know how to sell themselves. And a lot of salespeople are uncomfortable with that process. Good salespeople are not, right? They're proud of who they are, and they're happy to make themselves a part of the sale. So that's the first thing we have to understand, that people do not buy logically, they buy emotionally, and they're looking when they come into the dealership to buy not a tractor because they've already made a decision to do that, most likely. What they're looking for is, who do I buy from? Who do I trust enough to give $40,000 to? And again, that's a part of what you have to understand as a salesperson. Are you somebody that when people meet you, feel comfortable enough with you that they trust you enough to give you the money that you're asking them to give? So that's the first thing I tell salespeople. So number one, you're the product. So the next question always is, are you a good product, right? Are you a good product? And if you go, I don't know, I said, well, that's something that you need to figure out. What makes a good product a good product? It's got to look right? It's got to talk right. It's got to have confidence. Those are the things that are people looking for. So then the next thing that I always try to get salespeople to understand is, what is your primary goal, your primary responsibility as a salesperson? So what would you say? What is the primary responsibility of a salesperson? Anybody here that's got a mic that's unmuted, answer that question for me. What is the primary, Mike, what is the primary responsibility of a salesperson?
Taking care of that customer and his needs.
Okay, that would be a secondary thing. There's something that's right before that, Mike. A primary responsibility of a salesperson is to be in front of people who could buy. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So they bought at that point, Mike. So now you got to take care of them because we want them to come back and keep buying. But in the very beginning, my responsibility as a salesperson is one thing and one thing only. I have to every day make sure I'm in front of people who have the ability to buy from me.
It's qualifying the customer.
Well, that's a part of it, but I still got to get in front of people to even start the qualifying process. Okay, so as I work with salespeople, I said the key thing in sales is a thing called a pipeline or a funnel. Have you all familiar with pipelines and funnels? Okay, so a pipeline or a funnel, it's the same thing. Some people call them funnels. We got all these people at the top and they kind of funnel down, and we get a sale out of it. Or a pipeline is the same thing. And my pipeline is full of people, of leads. And my goal is to keep that pipeline full, so at the end of every day, week, or month, there's enough people flowing out of my pipeline that I'm hitting my sales goal. And I always tell salespeople, selling to me is simple because we understand what our sales goal is. I'm assuming everybody on here at the beginning of 2025 in January, I hope at least, you or your owners set a sales goal out for you at the beginning of the year, right? So if they didn't, then that's a fatal flaw, because if you don't actually have a goal you're shooting for, you're just crossing your fingers and going like, well, that month sucked, or that month wasn't too bad. You've always got to have a goal as a salesperson. You got to have a goal or a target you're shooting for, right? And then what you have to do is, once I have a goal or a target, then I've got to figure out, well, gosh, if my goal or my target is, let's say $4 million of LS tractor sales, if that's my goal, then my next question is, well, gosh, how many people do I need in my funnel or pipeline? How many leads do I need in my funnel or pipeline to generate $4 million of tractor sales, or $2 million of tractor sales, or even $1 million of tractor sales? And again, when I'm working with salespeople and I ask them, how many leads do you need to hit your sales goal? Some of them go, well, Bob, I don't really have a sales goal. They just want us to do better than we did last year. Okay, well, that sucks. Okay, so now we're just, I don't know, a little bit better than average, because last year was an average year. What's your goal? What's your target? And then if they do have one, let's say it's $1 million. Let's keep our math simple. So if your goal or your target is $1 million, then my next question is okay, if it's $1 million, how many people do you need to be in front of over the next 12 months to sell $1 million of tractors, $1 million of equipment? And most salespeople do not know the answer to that question. And it's the most fundamental and most critical question you should know the answer to as a salesperson. How many times do I have to get up to bat? Let's talk about it in baseball context. How many times do I have to get up to bat to get on base? If a batter has a 400 batting average, Mike, okay, what does that mean in baseball? So let's say that we have a batter that has a 400 batting average. What does that mean in baseball, Mike? Is that a good number or a bad number?
I don't follow baseball that much, so I couldn't
Okay.
tell you.
Does anybody, Micah, do you follow baseball? Is a 400 batting average a good number or a bad number? Get you unmuted for me, Mike.
I'd say that's pretty fantastic.
Okay, and why would you say so, Mike? Let's talk about this for a second. I appreciate you unmuting for me, Mike. So if a batter has a 400 batting average, that's based upon every 10 times at bat they get on base 4 times, right? That's how it's averaged out. So that means that the person that has a 400 batting average, Micah, struck out 6 out of 10 times. But you're telling me that in baseball, somebody that fails 60% of the time at bat would be considered a great player?
Absolutely.
Okay, and how much money might a person that fails 60% of the time at bat, Michael, how much money would a failure like that maybe make in baseball?
They would be millionaires.
They would make tens of millions of dollars, and they wouldn't be the first at bat. They would be like number 3 or number 4, because 4 out of 10 times they get on base. And I tell people, so that's why numbers are so important. And I always ask salespeople, if you closed 40% of all your quotes, how would you do? And every salesperson goes, I'd be great. I go, well, that's like having a 400 batting average. And I think, Micah, I may be wrong on this, but I believe there's only been one batter in all the history of baseball that ever had a 400 batting average. I'm from Kansas City. George Brett had one of the best years of anybody out there. In his best year, he was only at 380. He didn't quite get to 400, right? So it's a pretty phenomenal number to get to. And again, I think in all of baseball, there's only been one batter that got there. So again,
Yeah, not enough steroids in the world to hit that.
Well, even the guys on steroids couldn't make it. Okay, and the guy that got, I can't think who it was now, but the guy that got there wasn't on steroids back at that time. But I just go back again. So I tell people, so really everything is about numbers. And one of the things is I talk to dealerships and work with dealerships, I try to get everybody to understand everything is a number. So the first thing we have to understand is how many times do I need to get to bat? Lance, good seeing you on here. So how many times do I need to get up to bat to get a sale? And that means then how many leads do I need to get in front of? How many leads do I need to qualify? Mike, back to your point, that turn into prospects do I need? So I'm going to have you guys do a little exercise. If you happen to have a pen or a paper in front of you, I'm going to ask you to write down some numbers for me. And this is going to be just an example, but I would like for when you're done with this, I'd like for you guys to go back and do this on your own. So this is an exercise I always have salespeople do when I'm training them. And I walk them through the math. And then what I ask them to do is to take 2 weeks and measure their numbers. And then they can come up with their own calculations. So the first thing we're going to start off with is some basic math. Is I want you to write down the number 20. So just put 20 down on a piece of paper. And next to 20, I want you to write the word leads. 20 leads. Okay. So we have 20 leads. What is a lead? It's a warm body that has a pulse and can fog a mirror. That's all it is. It's a person, right? Doesn't mean they're going to buy. Doesn't mean they're not going to buy. It's just a body. Somebody that comes in, Micah, to your dealership and says, can I use your restroom? If you say, have you ever thought about a tractor? Right? And they go, yes, I'm not interested. That's fine. They're just a lead. They're a warm body with a pulse. 20 of those is what you're going to have on your sheet. Underneath the 20, I want you to write down the number 10. Next to 10, I want you to put the word prospects. Okay, so you have 20 leads. A lead is just a warm body that has a pulse and can fog a mirror. Underneath that, you have 10 prospects. Okay, now, Mike, this flows into what you were talking about. Okay, so what turns a lead into a prospect? Okay, so I had 20 leads. Out of those 20 leads, I uncovered 10 prospects. Well, a prospect becomes a prospect when there are 3 questions that they can answer for you. Okay, so now we go into, Mike, what you talked about, the discovery process or the qualification process. So part of what we're trying to do is we're trying to qualify our leads to see if any of them actually will become prospects. And so to make a prospect, there's three things a prospect has to be able to answer the question to. Number one, do they have a need for what you sell? If you've got somebody, Micah, that's looking at something you sell and they live in a condo and they don't have any land and they never plan on getting the land, but they've always been fascinated with tractors. Okay, they may be fascinated with tractors, but they don't have a need, so they're not a prospect. They're still just a lead. Okay, so number one is they have a need for what you have. Number two, they have money or access to money to buy it. Okay, so a lead turns into a prospect when they have three things. One of them is they have to have a need for what you sell. They need it. They can use it. Number two is they have to have money or have access to money. So if I've got somebody, Mike, that has got a need for what we have, but they don't have any access to money, they can't get credit, they got a 400 credit rating, right? They're still just a lead. They don't turn into a prospect because they can't actually buy what I'm selling. And the third piece of it is, and probably one of the most important, is are they the decision maker? I have been in sales since 1973. And Mike, I have given some of my finest presentations to people that could not buy from me. Okay, some of my best have been the people that couldn't buy because I didn't ask them those stupid questions. Number one, do you have a need? Number two, do you have money or access to money? And I don't actually ask them that way, but I'll show you how to do it. And then the third one is, are you the decision maker or are you a part of the decision making process? If they say, no, I'm not a decision maker, nor am I a part of it, if they have a need and have the money, you still don't have anything but a lead. They can't be a prospect until those three criteria are met. I have a need, I have money or access to money, and I am the decision maker or a part of the decision process. So I have 20 leads that turned into 10 prospects. Prospects were, they had a need, had the cash, and they were a decision maker. Underneath the 10 prospects, I want you to write down the number 5. Okay? And beside 5, I want you to put walkarounds or quotes. Okay, walkarounds or quotes. All right? So I had 10 prospects. Out of those 10 prospects, Micah, only 5 of them liked me enough, trusted me enough, was comfortable with me enough to actually let me do a walk around on a piece of equipment or give them a quote. The other 5 says, Bob, you make me uncomfortable. You seem like a greasy, slick, slimy salesperson. Don't want anything to do with you. So out of the 10, 5 didn't want anything to do with me. Okay, and 5 was comfortable enough with me that they would let me do a walk around or a quote. Okay, then underneath the 5, I want you to put down the number 1. Put down the number 1. Okay, beside the number 1, I want you to write the word sale. So 1 sale. And now beside the word sale, I want you to write, let's do $40,000. So 1 sale equals $40,000 sale, $40,000 in gross revenue. Okay. So now, Micah, I got my batting average. Okay. So I know to get 1 sale, Mike, I have to have 20 leads in my pipeline. Those 20 leads will turn into 10 prospects. Those 10 prospects will turn into 5 walkarounds or quotes. And the 5 walkarounds or quotes will ultimately end up with me getting 1 sale. And I know the value of the sale, the average value of the sale I make is $40,000. So my next question to a salesperson is, if you needed to do $1 million in sales and you knew your average sale was $40,000, if I took $1 million and divided it by 40,000, that would tell me, Mike, I need to make 25 sales, right? So if I took 25 and multiplied it by 40,000, that's going to give me $1 million of sales. So if I needed to do $1 million of sales and my average was $40,000 a sale, I basically need to do 25 sales or one $40,000 sale every other week, right? And if I did that, I would do $1 million in sales. If I needed to do $2 million in sales, then I basically need to sell one $40,000 tractor every week. And if I did that, than I would have if I sold one a week. I would sell 50 tractors, LS tractors, over a period of 12 months, and I would have $2 million worth of sales. Would you all agree? So it's just math, right? The thing that you don't know is your math. You got to figure out what your math is. I made some numbers up here, right? You've got to figure out what your math is. So then my next question I always ask salespeople, because I think this is where salespeople get stuck. Salespeople think they make their money when they get the sale. And I would say, actually, you don't make your money when you get the sale. A sale is just a part of the activity that happens. Selling is always about activity. If I do the right amount of activity, I will always get a sale. Just how it is, because selling is all about averages. So I know if I have 20 leads and I qualify those, and 10 of those of the 20 leads turn into prospects, and I have conversations with them and qualify them like Mike's talking about, and out of that, only 5 of them like me enough to let me do a quote or a walk around, and out of that, only 1 of them bought, I know that to get 1 sales, I had to touch how many people, Micah? To get 1 sale, I had to connect with how many people?
Bob, I'm going to go with 20 on that one.
That would be a great answer. I had to touch 20 people. Okay.
I just earned my $1 million.
So let's go back to math. So if I wanted to do, if I needed 25 sales and I needed 20 people that are just random people, Micah, these don't mean people that'll buy from me. These are people that you just meet. If I need to get 25 sales and I know that it takes me 20 strangers to get 1 sale, if I take 25, multiply it by 20, it tells me I've got to have,
I think that's 500.
500 people in my funnel. And if I had 500 people in my funnel that I was working all the time, I would get $1 million worth of sales. So I always tell salespeople, so the thing you have to think about is, really, is the sale worth $40,000? Not really, because to get the sale, I had to have 5 walkarounds or quotes. So really, the sale is not worth $40,000. The walkaround and quotes are worth $8,000 a piece, right? I had to do 5 of them to get 1 sale. So if I take 5 divided by 40,000, that makes that each one of those walkarounds or quotes I did, even if I didn't sell them, because I only ended up selling 1, but they were all of them, each one of them was worth $8,000. But really, that's not true, because it took me 10 prospects to get 5 walkarounds or quotes. So if I look at the 10 prospects, really, I didn't make $8,000 for every walk around or quote I did. I actually made $4,000 for every prospect that I found. $4,000 for every person I talked to. But actually, I would have not got to those 10 prospects, Micah, unless I had 20 leads. And actually, what it comes down to is each person that you have in your funnel has a value. And in my example, everybody in your funnel is worth $2,000 of gross revenue. And the problem that I find that salespeople have is they don't have a clue. Number one, how many people they got in their funnel. And the other clue they don't have is how much is each person in that funnel, whether they buy or not, worth. I learned a long time ago in sales that a no is worth the exact same amount of money as a yes. A no is worth the exact same amount of money as a yes. To get 1 yes in this example, Micah, I had to get 19 no's. That's just the reality of it, right? But I don't really care, because I make $2,000 of gross revenue every time somebody tells me no. Somebody told me no, I just say, hey, Micah, thanks for the $2,000. They go, I didn't buy anything. It says, oh, my dealership pays me $2,000. They write down $2,000 for everybody I just talked to. Whether you say yes or no, I still get my $2,000 accounted for to my gross revenue. Right? I said, do you have any other people that you don't think would buy from me either? I'd love to talk to them. Right? And I tell people again, so you got to get focused on the right thing. So here's my challenge to you guys. What I'd like for you to do is to take a piece of blank paper, a legal pad, whatever it is. And for 2 weeks, all I want you to do is to put a mark on the top of the page for everybody that comes in, everybody you talk to, every lead you interact with. Somebody calls in on the phone, I want you to put a mark on the paper. Somebody texts you, I want you to put a mark on the paper. Somebody texts you 3 times in a row, I want you to put 3 marks on the paper. Every time you have an interaction with a lead, a warm body that has a pulse, I want you to mark it down on a piece of paper. I don't care about their name. I don't care about their email address. I don't care about any of that stuff right now. I just want to see how many times do you get up to bat, and then what is each one of those batting times worth. So what you would do is you'd add up at the end of 2 weeks all the marks you have on your paper, and then you'd take all of your sales, your total sales for that 2 week period of time, divided by all the marks on that paper, and it would tell you exactly what each one of those marks was worth. And I think you will be shocked at the value of every one of those marks on that piece of paper. So I tell salespeople, the number one thing that you have to do as a salesperson is you've got to be in front of people who have the potential to buy from you. I don't know whether they will or not, but I've got to be in front of people. And this is the thing that drives me nuts, because I was talking to a group of salespeople today that are not LS dealers, but they're down in Arkansas. And one of the guys, I said, how's it doing? He goes, like, Bob, man, the phones are just not ringing. His name is Kevin. And I said, well, Kevin, I said, what are you going to do about that? And he says, I don't know. What can I do? He said, I just got to wait here till the phone rings and I go like, oh my God, I'd fire you today if you were my salesperson. Your job is to make the phone ring, right? You're waiting for some gravy, some magical icing on the cake to come to you. That stuff is the gravy. That stuff is, you didn't do anything to get that. I said, Kevin, your job every day is to be reaching out to people to get your pipeline. And then I asked him the question, I said, how many people you have in your pipeline? He goes, I don't know. And I go, so because we get together every week with this team. And I said, Kevin, I said, when we get together next week, I want the answer to that question. How many people do you have in your pipeline? And his manager, Matthew, was on there and he says, Bob, I'll make sure he has that for you. Then I asked the other guys, and really none of the other guys knew either. And I said, as a salesperson selling tractors, if you don't have 250 leads in your pipeline, you ain't even in the game, right? You're not even getting up to bat. Doesn't mean 250 are going to buy from you, but every 60 days, you should be able to go through your lead, your pipeline, and reach out either an email, a text, or a phone call, and touch every lead that you have in your funnel, right? You should be able in 60 days to go through your whole funnel and touch everybody in it, because we never know when one of those are going to shake loose and turn into a sale. So that's my challenge to you and a little bit of a homework assignment. So then the next thing we have to do is say, okay, so let's say I've got leads in, so I've got my prospects there. And I've qualified my prospects or done what I call the discovery process, which is what Mike was talking about through the qualification process. So now I've got to figure out, okay, of these people that are prospects, how do I turn them into people that I can do walkarounds with? And that's what we talk about, our discovery or our qualifying process. Now, this is another area that I find salespeople are terrible at because they don't have a preset series of questions they always ask everybody. And because of that, they end up leaving out a question or two, and it comes back and bites them in the butt because I didn't think to ask that, or I didn't think about that. I tell salespeople, sales is a process. No different than the parts department is a process or the service department is a process. Sales is a process. And one of the most important parts of your process is your discovery process. So again, the discovery process is simply a series of questions that you're always going to ask people every time in the same sequence. My discovery process basically goes, and let's say again that Mike, you and let's say your wife or significant other comes into my dealership. The first thing I would do is I tell people, again, you guys have this training in your LS portal. I have a whole series on how to read people's faces, all of that stuff that you guys have access to for free in the portal that you guys have at LS. If you're not taking advantage of it, you're nuts. But I have a program in there called Dare to Be Different, and I teach you in that program how to read people. I'm a big believer that you can read a person's face if you know what to look for, and you can read everything about that person without them ever having a word come out of their mouth. And so one of the things I teach salespeople to do is watch people's eyebrows. So again, if somebody walks into a dealership and their eyebrows are up, I know they're comfortable, open, and they're willing to let me engage with them. If their eyebrows are down, they want to be left alone. They're uncomfortable. So if somebody walked into the dealership, my dealership, and I said, and your eyebrows were up, I'd say, hey, Mike, thanks for coming in. So what brought you in today? My question is not, are you looking for a tractor or what are you looking for? My question is, so what brought you in today? That's called an open sense question, and it'll always get a response. And if Mike said, my wife and I have been thinking about getting a new tractor. Okay, if Mike's wife is not with him, do I have all the decision makers in play? I do not. So my number one goal is to get Mike excited enough to get his wife to come back in with him, because 80% of the time, if there's a man and a woman involved in the decision process, who makes the decision?
The wife.
The wife. I can't tell you how many times I've seen guys get a husband excited. The husband goes home and the wife's not involved. And the husband comes back and says, well, my wife and I talked about it and she thinks we should wait. Okay. Because he ain't going to make a decision there without her. So again, so what I'm trying to do again is say, so what brought you in today? And let's say that Mike is there with his wife, and he says, my wife and I have decided that it's time for us to look at a new tractor. To look at a new tractor. That tells me that Mike currently has a tractor. So my next question is, well, that's great, Mike. So what kind of tractor do you have now? My next question is not what are you looking for in a new tractor, which is what most salespeople would do. What I understand about selling is selling. People have a tendency to buy the same way over and over and over again. My goal is to try to figure out what made you buy the tractor that you bought however many years ago. So I'd say, gosh, Mike, that's great. So what kind of tractor do you have now? And let's say Mike says, oh, I've got a John Deere, I don't know, XYZB, whatever it is. Okay. And I go, that's great, Mike. And I said, how long have you had it? Why do I care how long they've had it? Because I'm going to use that when they hit me with a price objection. How long have you had it? And let's say Mike says, oh, we've had this thing for 20 years. I go, that's great. I would say, Mike, what do you like most about that John Deere tractor that you have? And Mike goes, oh man, Bob, this thing is built like a tank. It's easy to service. It's the most dependable piece of equipment I've ever had in my life. Mike just gave me his needs. People will not pay any more than they have to for what they need, but Mike just gave me his needs. His needs were, number one, he wants to buy another tractor that's built like a tank, that's easy to service, that you can show is dependable. I got to be able, the moment he says that in my brain, I'm going like, okay, I've got to, when I do my walk around or quote, those are three things I've got to meet right up front. It's built like a tank, easy to service, and it is the most dependable thing he's ever had. Then I say, well, that's great, Mike. I said, if you and your wife could change or improve one thing about that John Deere tractor, what would it be? Wave a magic wand and make it better. What would it be? Dear God, Bob, we would love to have a cab, right? We're getting older, taking care of the animals. It's hot, it's cold, it's rainy, it's dry, the wind's blowing, right? We're retired now. We'd love a cab. I go, okay, so is a cab a need? No, you can run a tractor without a cab on it, okay? So a cab is a want. How much more will people pay for something they want? Well, based upon studies, 20% more. So if somebody's coming in and saying, I don't want to spend more than $40,000 for a tractor, once I know what they want, which is that cab, I know I can get them to spend close to $48,000 on that same thing if I know how to sell. So the want is an emotion. And I'm going to save the emotion to the last part of the selling process because that's going to help me to close. So what do you have now? What do you like most about it? How long have you had it? If you could change or improve or make it better, what would it be? Then my next question is going to be, if you decided to do this, Mike, and I'm not saying you and your wife are, but if you decided to, have you thought about financing? Would you finance it? Would you do a loan? Would you do a trade-in? Oh no, Bob, we want to do financing through you. That's great. I need to know that going into this thing. The next question I want to ask is, if you decided to do this, and I'm not saying you are, I always like to say that because I'm trying to get this person to understand, I'm not trying to sell you here. If you decided to do it, and I'm not saying you are, what sort of time frame are you looking at? Well, gosh, Bob, we have that 100% depreciation allowance allowed at the end of the year for anything we buy this year. So we would definitely want to buy this before the end of the year so we could take advantage of that 100% depreciation that came with that big, beautiful bill that got passed back in July. So they're going to want to take advantage of that 100% depreciation in this year. So I know, right, if it's the 1st of November, Mike, I know basically they're going to want to have something happen at least before the end of the year. Because if they buy it the next year, then they missed out on a $40,000 tax deduction that they could have took this year. And if their tax rate is, let's say 30%, 100% deduction, depreciation on $40,000 with a 30% tax rate, you just gave them a $12,000 discount. So what they're really doing is they're going to have to pay $28,000 for a $40,000 tractor. All right, and I don't know if any of you guys as salespeople are aware of this, but this is the greatest selling tool that you've ever had out there. And everybody, and a lot of your customers are not even aware of it. So if you're not aware of that, be aware of it. So now I've got everything I need to do. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my LS tractors based upon what they told me, and I'm going to pick out 2 models. Okay, I never show somebody one of anything, because if I show them one of anything, it's too easy to say yes or no. When you are working with people and you're selling people, always give them 2 options. You have option A, which has this, this, and this, and this, and you have option B, which has this and this. If you don't give them two options, Mike, then my option is yes or no. Okay, so you always give them two options. And my first option is going to be more than they wanted to spend, and it's going to be it's going to have a lot of things on it. So when I'm doing a presentation to somebody, I always show them something that's quite a bit more than they thought they wanted. Okay, it's more than they thought they wanted, quite a bit more than they thought they wanted. All right, and so I walk them through that, and I do the demo or I do the walk around on that. Right, and then I say, now I want to show you something else that's more in line with what you wanted, and then I'm going to show them the thing that's closer to what they wanted, but it's going to be less than what I showed them. One of the things I learned a long time ago in sales, if you show them what they want and then you try to move them up to something more, it's very difficult to do. If I show them something that's a lot more than they wanted, and then I go show them what they wanted, they will have me stop taking things off of what they wanted faster than they will let me put things on what they really wanted. So I tell people, so that's a thing that I learned in sales. I'm also going to bring two brochures with me, one for each, two. I'm going to take two for each model. I'm going to give one to the husband and one to the wife with a pen that they can make notes on. So this is the other thing that I see. Salespeople don't understand that brochures are not something that you give away at the end of the conversation. Brochures are something that you use as a selling tool. That's what they were designed for 50 years ago. And salespeople have just got to a point where everything has failed. The customer really wants to get rid of you. And the easiest way to get rid of a salesperson, Mike, is to say, hey, Mike, I really appreciate it. Do you have a brochure I could take with me, Mike? And what they're really saying is, you really sucked as a salesperson. I don't want to tell you that you suck as a salesperson, so it's just easier if I ask for a brochure. So I always laugh when salespeople say, oh yeah, I gave out a lot of brochures today. And I go, well, you sucked in front of a lot of people then, because the only reason that you give out brochures at the end is because people asked for them, not because they weren't not interested in it. They just wanted to figure out a way to get rid of you without embarrassing you. So a brochure comes out as a part of your walk around process. I give each person a brochure by themselves, and I give them a pen or a marker that they can write on with. And as I'm doing the walk around, I point out things on the equipment and I have them circle those things on the brochure. I want that brochure to start becoming, right, a custom brochure for them. So if they choose not to buy today, they will take their brochures with them. And I'm telling you, they will keep them because they wrote in them, and they will most likely come back and do business with you. So brochures are an important part of the process. So now as I'm doing my walk around, I'm going to go back, and my goal in my walk around is to try to create what we call yes momentum. Okay, so a lot of people say, gosh, Bob, how do you close a sale? And I go, I don't know, you do it during your walk around. Closing a sale, most salespeople do their spiel and then they wait to the end, and then their big close, Mike, is, so what do you think? Okay, so that's a terrible close, okay? Because you gave them a yes or a no. It sucked, or I need to think about it. So I tell people selling is about building yes momentum. My goal in sales is to get you to say yes to me 6 or 8 times when I'm doing my walk around or as I'm walking through my quote. It's the same thing. So Mike, let's say you and I and your wife are at where we've got this LS tractor we're in front of. And I'd say, Mike, I said, do you remember one of the first things you told me, Mike, what you told me that you really liked about that John Deere tractor? You remember what the first thing you told me was? And Mike will go, yeah, Bob, it's built like a tank. And I go, let me show you how LS builds their tractors. And I'm going to do a quick walk around with Mike and his wife, and I'm going to point out everything that's built on this LS tractor that is built like a freaking tank. Okay, and I'm going to come back around to the front again, and this might be a minute walk around, and all I'm going to focus on in this walk around is how it is built. And then when I get back to the front, Mike, I'm going to say, so Mike, I think you and your wife both agree, right? This thing is built like a tank, isn't it? And I'm going to shake my head up and down, and Mike's going to start doing what with his head? He'll start shaking his head up and down, and now Mike has given me a yes. Okay, and Mike's wife many times will be shaking her head up and down like this too. I always find it interesting. I see salespeople doing this all the time when they're talking. Mike, you and your wife are going to be excited about LS tractors. We're really excited about them too. And you're doing this with your head. And Mike, if I start doing this with my head, guess what you and your wife will start doing with their head? They will start following you. This is a process called leading and pacing, psychologically, subconsciously. I'm telling you to say what to me, Mike? No. Okay, I want you to say yes to me. Okay, selling is a game of psychology. So the next thing I do is I say, hey, Mike, are you married, Mike?
Yep.
What's your wife's name?
Trisha.
Trisha. So I'd say, Trisha, let me ask you a question. You remember the second thing you told me that you really loved about that John Deere tractor? And she goes, yeah, Bob, it's really easy to service. Let me show you guys how easy it is to service an LS tractor. So I'm going to pop the hood open, and I would tell salespeople the first thing I would do, since Trisha, I asked her the question. I said, Trisha, you see those two snaps? That's where the air cleaner is. This has a dual air cleaning system, a Donaldson system, right? What I want you to do is pull that outer element out. Just pull it out. So she unclips it, pulls it out, says, now just put it back in, put the cap back on and clip them. I go, Trish, that was easy to do, wasn't it? She goes like, yeah. And having something that's easy to service is important. Would you guys agree? I go, yeah. Okay, now I got 2 yeses out of them already. And I've just now got to the air filter of the freaking tractor. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the quality and the reliability of the Anmar. And you can talk about that in many different ways. Tests, customer testimonials, and things like this. And I say, because one of the things that I know that's important to you is have a tractor that you guys know is reliable. And I think you would agree that LS is a reliable tractor. It's something that's built with reliability in it. Wouldn't you agree? And they say yes again. So I literally, in just my first pieces of the walk around, I've already got you saying yes to me 3 times. Now, the next thing I'm going to say is, now let me ask you a question, Mike. You remember the one thing when I said if you could change or improve that tractor, what would you do to make it better? And you remember, Mike and Trish, what you said? We want a cab. Let's take a look at the cab. And so what I would do now is I would have Trish get up in the cab first. I would get up and stand on the footstep outside. And I say, Trish, I want you to start it. I want to show you how this works. And I want you to play with things just a little bit. You're not going to hurt anything, or you're not going to kill anybody. So I want Trish in there looking at it, show her how to adjust the seat, show her how to do different things in there, and just let her be in there. Okay, I need to let her touch it, let her turn the radio on, let her turn the heater, air conditioner on, show her all those things, and let her experience the cab. Close the door, how quiet it is, open the door, things like this. Then I'm going to say, okay, Trish, I'm going to have you get out. Mike, I'm going to have you get in the cab next. I'm going to take a moment and show Mike the same things I showed Trish, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time with Mike because I'm going to let Mike go in there and play because the guys like to play with stuff. But really what I want to do is start having a conversation with Trish. Mike, why would I want to have a conversation with your wife with you not involved in it?
She's the decision maker.
She's the decision maker, Mike. And so I need the decision maker, Mike, to start making sure that they really like me. Okay, does that make sense? Right. And so Trish, I said, when you're up in the cab, I go, it was really comfortable, wasn't it? And that seat was easy to adjust. And she was going, yeah, Bob, it was. Yeah, Bob, it was. What'd you think of the air conditioning? Oh, that is be great. What do you think of the heater? Oh, that'd be awesome. Did you like the radio, the stereo? It was great, Bob. And all Trish is doing to me right now is just saying yes, 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 yes. Then Mike's going to come out of the cab. Now, this many times is where you'll close the sale. So Mike's going to step out of the cab. And he's going to want to start talking to Trish a little bit. I need you to move away from that conversation. Let Mike and Trish have a conversation. Okay, because right now I've shown them their want. Okay, this is the emotion thing for them. And they both now experienced. In sales, we call this the peak emotional event. I've got all the emotions at the absolute highest they're ever going to be. And now they start talking to each other. And pretty soon Mike turns around to me and he says, hey, Bob, Trish and I are not saying we're ready to do this. We're not ready to make a decision. But if we did, and we're not saying we are, Bob, but if we did, is there any way you guys could have this delivered to us by the mid part of next week? And they say, no, we're not saying we're going to do it. And I said, that's fine. And what would you say at that point? Well, most people would say, sure, we could do that. And that would be the foolish thing to say because you said yes before they said yes. Your number one rule in sales is the customer has to say yes before you say yes. So if Mike and Trish said, Bob, we're not saying we're going to buy it, but if we did, and we're not saying we are, but if we did, is there any way, Bob, that you guys think you could have this delivered to us by the mid part of next week? And I'm going to do a technique that's called reversing in sales. And I'm going to say, Mike, Trish, would the mid part of next week work out best for you guys? And I shake my head like this. And because Mike and Trish have been doing this, they will automatically start doing what? Shaking their head like this. And I say, why don't we do this, Mike and Trish? Let's go get with the service manager, see if that's possible, because I don't know if it is. And let's go ahead and get the paperwork started. Fair enough. I shake my head again. I start to walk away from them. This is called an assumptive close. And I'm going to tell you that 90% of the time they will follow you. The sale's done. It's just done. Now, if it's not done, you may end up getting an objection. And they may go, well, hang on, Bob. This is a little bit more than we wanted to spend. Has anybody ever heard that objection before? Shouldn't be. It's a pretty common one, right? If it's a little bit more than we wanted to spend. So I would say, well, gosh, Mike and Trish, today everything's more than I want to spend. Have you bought any beef lately? They go, oh yeah. So I always tell people again, have you done anything like this lately? And I want people to go, yeah, I can't believe the price of beef. I said, I can't either. I said, today, Mike and Trish, everything is too high. Wouldn't you agree? And they go, yes. So now it's not just me that's too high. It's what? Everything is too high. Everything is too high. Okay, so the first thing you always do when you get an objection is you agree with them. Don't fight them. Don't try to come up with some schemy way to get out of it. Just agree with them and go, yeah, everything is too high. Okay, but then I say, but let me ask you a question, Mike and Trish, about how much too much is it? And Mike says, well, gosh, Bob, we were thinking about not spending any more than, say, $35,000. And this, what you're showing me is $40,000. So I'd say, well, gosh, Mike and Trish, so what we're looking at is about $5,000. Isn't that right? And they say, yes. Okay, so how much of a $40,000 tractor did Mike and Trish just buy? $35,000 of it. I am never going to talk about a $40,000 tractor again. All I'm going to do is focus on the $5,000. All I have to do is overcome a $5,000 objection, not a $40,000 objection. And so I say, so we're looking at about $5,000, right? And they go, yeah. I said, well, sometimes we don't put things in a proper perspective, and I think we should, don't you? And they'll go, yes, because I've been doing what with my head, Micah? I've been doing this. So they're like a Pavlovian dog now. When I ring the bell, they salivate. So I said, they say yes. And I say, so let's take a look at this. How long did you keep the other tractor? Do you remember what you told me? And Mike's going to say, yeah, Bob, we had it for 20 years. So I said, well, how long, Mike and Trish, do you think you'll keep this tractor? And they go, we'll probably never get rid of it. And by the way, do you guys know as salespeople that the average person you sell a tractor to in their lifetime will only buy 1.7 tractors? The average person you sell a tractor to in their lifetime will only buy 1.7 tractors. If Mike and Trish already has a tractor, the probability is this will be the last tractor they ever buy. And I always tell salespeople, so don't take a look at what they need today. If this is the last tractor Mike and Trish are ever going to buy, you damn well better have them looking at 10 years in the future. Is this still going to meet your needs 10 years from now? So again, so keep that in mind in sales. On the average, a person buys 1.7 tractors in their lifetime. If they already have one, this will probably be the last one they bought. So I say, well, sometimes we don't put things in a proper perspective, and I think we should, don't you, Mike and Trish? And they're going to go, yes. I'd say, so how long did you keep the John Deere tractor? And they go, well, we kept it 20 years. I go, how long do you think you'll keep this one? They go, we'll probably never get rid of it. I said, could we safely say 20 years? And they go, oh yeah, we'll keep it 20 years. I said, so really we're not looking at $5,000. We're looking at $250 a year. If I took $5,000 and divided by 20 years, it's $250 a year. Isn't that right? They go, yes. Hadn't really thought about that way. And so we're not really looking at $250 a year because there's 50 weeks in a year. So really what we're looking at, right, is not $250 per year, but we're looking at about $5 per week, right? And they go, yeah, that's true, right? Because if I took $250 a year and I divide it by 50 weeks, and I wouldn't use 52 because it makes my math hard, so just use 50. They go, it's $5 a week. And let me ask you a question. I know you're going to use this to take care of your livestock and feed your livestock. How many days of the week do you take care of your livestock? Like one day a week? And they go, no, every day. Oh, okay. So we're going to use this tractor every day. So at least 5 days a week, right? So really what we're looking at here, Mike and Trish, is $1 per day to use this tractor, to have this tractor, to have a tractor that you guys have always dreamed about having. Okay, and I'm just going to stop there because at $1 a day, I don't need to go any farther. This is a technique called reduction to the ridiculous. I say, let me ask you a question, Mike and Trish. For $1 a day to have a tractor that you guys have always dreamed of having, now watch what I'm going to do with my head. I'm going to go, it just doesn't make sense not to do this, does it? Now, I need you to say no because you want to say no. But if I said, Mike, it just doesn't make sense not to do this, and you shake your head no, you just said what? No, it doesn't make sense not to do this, which means we should do what? Yes,
Right.
let's move forward. Okay. Selling is understanding psychology. Selling is getting people to say yes to you. I tell people closing a sale is easy because when I'm closing a sale, when I'm doing a walk around or a quote, I'm getting you to say yes all the way through the process. I don't wait to the end and go, so I'm going to throw the big close on you now. I don't do that. Right? I tell people again, I've been closing you literally from the moment we started doing the walk around, and you were totally oblivious to it the whole time. That's what selling's all about. So anyway, well, I did record this. So if you want to go back and listen to it, if you got some other people that you feel like would benefit from listening to it, I'll send this, Kevin. I'll do it as soon as it's rendered. It'll probably be tomorrow, Kevin, now. But as soon as it's rendered, I will send you the rendering, and then Kevin, you can make sure that everybody on here can get the link to that. So just open it up real quick. Micah, first of all, Micah, thanks for helping me out there. Mike, thank you for helping me out also. Any questions from anybody? Mike, do you have any questions, thoughts, or comments?
All good.
Oh, good. Well, gosh, at my age, I'm happy just to hear that. Right. So, Lance, good seeing you on there. Lance, any thoughts or comments? Lance, you're muted right now, Lance. Get you unmuted.
Now, there we
There
go.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
thoughts
it
or
was a good
comments, Lance?
refresher. I've heard it before, Bob, and I'll run this across our guys on Monday.
That's great. Well, Lance, as old as I am, it was all new to me. So
That's good.
good. Good having you. We need to catch up, Lance. It's been a while.
Oh, I've been out for a while.
I know. That's good. So anyway, let's catch up. Micah, how about anything on your side? First of all, Micah, thanks for joining me and helping me out there. And thanks for knowing that a 400 batting average is actually a pretty good number.
It's the only thing I've ever known for sure.
Doesn't matter, right? So you're ahead of most people in life, Micah. You're ahead of most of them in life. Any thoughts or questions?
No, look good, Bob. Thank you, bud.
Very good. Thanks, Micah. Casey, we're going to go up to you if you want to unmute your mic. Any thoughts or questions, Casey, on your side? Anything I can help you with?
No, that was great. I really enjoyed that one today. I liked the getting them to agree with you just by shaking your head. I've never really put that into perspective, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't work on my wife, by the way, Casey.
Mine neither, but
I wanted you to know that. So my wife goes, "Don't do that stuff to me. Don't use that stuff on me." I go, "I didn't." Right? So I appreciate it, Casey. Danielle, how about yourself? Thoughts or questions? All right. Ashton, how about you? Thoughts or questions on your side? Nothing there. And Taylor, thoughts or questions on your side?
No, Bob, appreciate it. I'll keep hounding my guys, and I'll get the recordings out there, and hopefully
Okay,
get
that's
this
great.
in front of more.
Like I say, it'll
more
take
people.
probably an hour for it to render tonight. Right now it's 6 o'clock my time, and I've got a podcast I got to be on with my son here in about 30 minutes. So I'll get the rendering, and Kevin, and I'll have it out to you and Taylor tomorrow. Ashton, good to see you on there. Any thoughts or questions on your side, Ashton?
No, sir. I just wanted to say appreciate it. Thanks
Thank you.
again.
Thank you for taking time to be on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's always good.
Awesome, guys. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go make money. And most importantly,
Thank
sell more LS tractors. That's the purpose, right?
Oh,
And we know now, and we know how to sell, and now we know how to sell 50 a year with just some basic math.
Hey, Bob, Mike here.
Mike,
Town and
good to see
Country.
you.
Haven't seen you in forever.
I haven't changed one bit, have I?
I don't know. Yeah, I'll give you the benefit.
I got less
Look-
hair and it's
looking good.
whiter. Mike, are
You're
you
looking
kidding?
good.
Good. Thanks so much for being on. All right, guys. We'll see you guys. Thanks again, Kevin, for setting all this stuff. Taylor, appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.